Hi, I'm Jacob Hornberger, president of the Future of Freedom Foundation, and this is the March 2017 issue of the FFF Freedom Club Report. Nice to be back with y'all. I just got back from Orlando, Florida, where we put on this fantastic conference at Florida A&M University. We did it in conjunction with the law school there and actually two other law schools. Our host was a student representative of the ACLU on campus. She put the whole thing together, got the room, hosted us, marketed, promoted it, and then we just brought in the speakers that put on a really fantastic program. The speakers consisted of a man named Ken Williams, who is a former homicide investigator for the Boston Police Department, and he's now with an organization called LEAP, which used to be called Law Enforcement Against Prohibition. And also Cassandra Frederique, who's a young African-American woman from the Drug Policy Alliance in New York City, which is the premier organization devoted to ending the war on drugs. And Lawrence Vance, FFF's policy advisor, who's written this fantastic book on the drug war, which we're getting ready to convert into an FFF ebook this Friday, as a matter of fact, entitled The Drug War is a War on Freedom. It'll be available on Amazon. And the conference turned out to be fantastic. I mean, we all know that the drug war has impacted just about every family in America. But we also know that it's fallen disproportionately on African Americans. They have paid the biggest price in terms of mass incarceration, abuse by the cops. And so that, along with all the other disastrous effects of the war on drugs, as well as the immorality of it, punishing people for ingesting substances that the government doesn't approve of, are all the reasons why the drug war should be ended that were presented at this conference. And, I've noticed many years ago, well, actually for the last 40 years, that whenever I've attended libertarian organizations, conferences, or seminars or programs, and the ones that we've sponsored here at FFF, I've always noticed that there's very few African Americans in attendance, which has always befuddled me, because to me, libertarianism should be embraced by African Americans and, well, by everyone else. But you've got like African American teenagers that are paying an enormous price for example, by the minimum wage that locks them out of the labor market, which is why they have this chronic unemployment rate of 30 or 40% among African American teenagers. So what I decided to do about a year and a half or so ago is say, why don't we take our programs into African American universities? And there's this whole list of what are called historically black colleges and universities. You can see it online. And we started reaching out, trying to find criminal justice professors, sending out a multitude of emails in the blind, making phone calls. And we had a lot of dead ends, people not returning the call, not answering email. But finally, we hit with a group at Morgan State University. And you'll recall my report on that conference is another big success. And students were so grateful that we had brought this program into them and talked to them about what the drug war is doing to decimate people in the African American community. And well, we hit again with Florida A&M University. We found another student who was excited about this conference and helped us put it together. And the nice thing is that while we're talking about the drug war, which is of course adversely impacting blacks in a disproportionate way, it also gives us the opportunity to share libertarianism. And that's where my talk, I gave a little preliminary talk for about 10 minutes, and Lawrence Vance's talk was so important because we put it in the context of the drug war within the philosophy of libertarianism and being free, and in the overall context of libertarian philosophy. So we're out there spreading words to people that are what we might call the non-choir members. So we're excited about this project, and we're getting ready to put the videotape together. We'll have that online soon, and I'll let y'all know how you can access that. I think you greatly enjoyed the talks. We also have another conference that I want to talk to you about, and that's our upcoming conference in June 3rd, Saturday, Dulles Airport, about like 2 minutes from the airport. And it's going to be $99. I talked to you about it last month, but we've had development since then. Now, I gave you the lineup. I've been dreaming about this conference for about 3 years now. And I finally said, okay, we're going to put it together. And this is going to be one of the most fascinating, exciting, and relevant conferences in our 21-year history 27-year history here at FFF. I hope that you'll consider coming to it. I know you'll find it worthwhile. I told you about the speaker lineup. We have people like Jeffrey Sachs, who Time Magazine named one of the most influential people in the world. He's a leftist economist, but that's not what he's going to be talking about. He wrote this fantastic book on John Kennedy's peace speech in June 10th, 1963, where Kennedy reached out to the Soviet Union in friendship and peace and peaceful coexistence, and said, let's end the Cold War. And then he embarked on taking troops out of Vietnam, nuclear test ban treaty. In other words, he was engaging in total opposition to the military-industrial complex, the national security state. And so Sachs wrote this fantastic book on that speech and why it was so remarkable. It was the first time the Soviet Union had ever broadcast a speech by a president all across the country. And then we've got Stephen Kinzer, who is one of my heroes when it comes to foreign policy. He's written these fantastic books on regime change operations. Guatemala called Bitter Fruit. Iran called All the Shah's Men. He's got a brand new book that we'll be publishing a review about called The True Flag on the Spanish-American War, which was really the big turn toward overseas empire that the U.S. embarked on. So he's going to be there, and he's a former New York Times reporter, currently world affairs columnist for the Boston Globe. A guy named Michael Glennon, a professor at Tufts, professor of law in the law school there, and he's written this fantastic book called something about double government. The name escapes me right off the top of my head, but it is a fantastic book that shows how the national security state is really the power center of the federal government. It's called National Security and Double Government. And then there's Jefferson Morley, who has written this great ebook for us called CIA and JFK. He runs a great website called jfkfacts.org. He's going to be talking about the upcoming release of the records that are still not released about the Kennedy assassination by the CIA, the Pentagon, that are set to be released under the JFK Records Act back in the 1990s. They're set to be released this October, unless the CIA gets another extension, or the other agencies get an extension from President Trump based on, quote, national security. And then we've got David Talbot, who's written a great book on Allen Dulles, the head of the CIA during the Cold War and the Kennedy administration, the person that Kennedy fired, that arguably launched this war that Kennedy was having with the national security state all the way up to the time of his assassination. We got Douglas Horn, who's done this fantastic video for us on the Kennedy autopsy, and a fantastic ebook called JFK War with the National Security Establishment. I'll be speaking there, and a guy named Peter Janney, who's written a fantastic book on Mary Pinchot Meyer. So the complete bios are on our website, but guess what? We got 2 new editions since I last talked to you. And this is what's going to really make this conference even doubly more exciting. We've got Ron Paul, needs no introduction. He's going to be talking, and I asked him, well, what's your perspective on the Kennedy assassination? And he said, you can let your readers know that I will be sharing my perspective publicly for the first time ever at this conference. And so he seemed excited about coming and speaking here. And then we've got the Hollywood director and producer Oliver Stone, who I happened to meet at a conference 2 or 3 years ago, and I had asked him to speak for us at a conference within a conference on foreign policy and the national security state that the Students for Liberty were sponsoring a couple of years ago, and he graciously agreed to do that. And so I wrote him again. I said, would you consider speaking at this conference on both the national security state and the JFK assassination, sort of bringing his movie JFK up to date in the context of what's going on in the world today with the national security state, or what some people are calling the deep state. And he graciously said, I will be at this conference. And so this conference is going to be a real humdinger. I think it's going to be one of the real highlights of what we've done here at FFF for some 27 years. Hope you guys will be able to attend. Again, it's June 3rd, $99, really a cheap price for a conference with this kind of lineup. That'll include coffee and tea, lunch, and a great appetizer break, and of course, some great presentations. So that's my monthly report to you. I look forward to talking to you again next month. Thanks so much for your great support of FFF.